The Taisho era was the shortest period in Japanese history, yet its art and culture still captivate people today. The hit anime Kimetsu no Yaiba, Demon Slayer, is also set in the Taisho period. During these years, Japan benefited greatly from World War I, much like a fisherman taking advantage of a quarrel between others. But at the same time, one can see hints of the path leading toward World War II. In 1912, Emperor Meiji passed away, and his third son, Emperor Taisho, the only one to reach adulthood, ascended the throne. Even before his accession, Emperor Taisho had health issues. Soon after taking on the heavy schedule of imperial duties, he fell seriously ill with pneumonia. From then on, he often recuperated at imperial villas. Politically, Japan was still under the Hanbatsu system, dominated by leaders from the former Satsuma and Choshu domains. When Katsura Taro became prime minister for the third time, accusations of abuse of power sparked public outrage. The movement to break the grip of the political clans gained momentum, and eventually the third Katsura cabinet was forced to resign. For the first time, public pressure had directly influenced the government. After the Russo-Japanese War, Japan and Russia signed agreements under which Japan secured its interests in southern Manchuria and Russia in northern Manchuria. Prime Minister Katsura agreed to a memorandum for joint U.S.-Japan control of the South Manchuria Railway, but Foreign Minister Komura subsequently opposed it, leading to its cancellation. The U.S., angered, later proposed internationalizing all Manchurian railways, but Japan and Russia opposed, and Britain and France did not support it. In America, opinions split between those favoring cooperation with Japan against Russia and those advocating anti-Japanese policies. The international landscape had changed dramatically since the Russo-Japanese War. Germany, now a rising power, formed the Triple Alliance with Austria, Hungary, and Italy, building up its navy. In response, Britain improved relations with Russia, allied with France, and together formed the Triple Entente. In 1914, these two major blocs became the core of World War I, drawing in 28 countries across Europe. Bound by its alliance with Britain, Japan declared war on Germany and seized the Shandong Peninsula in China, then under German lease. Japan also escorted transport and merchant ships in the Mediterranean and dispatched Red Cross medical units to treat the wounded. But Japanese troops never fought on European battlefields. Exports of military supplies to Europe surged, bringing an economic boom and rapid inflation. With imports from Europe cut off, domestic industries such as heavy industry, chemicals, and machinery developed rapidly. In 1915, Japan sought to strengthen its position in China, then lacking a unified government since the fall of the Qing dynasty, by demanding that China transfer Germany's rights in Shandong to Japan, among other terms. Yuan Shikai, who had wrested the presidency from Sun Yat-sen, founder of the Republic of China, opposed the demands and leaked Group 5, the so-called Secret Request Clause, to the international community, framing it as something Japan had forced upon China. Japan later dropped Group 5 and issued a final ultimatum. When Yuan consented, criticism of him and anti-Japanese movements flared up across China. In 1917, the Russian Revolution established the Soviet regime, which withdrew from the war to focus on domestic reforms. Fearing the spread of communist revolution, the U.S., Britain, France, and Japan sent troops to Siberia. But the Soviet government suppressed counter-revolutionary forces and secured its position as a major power. When the war ended in 1918, Japan joined the Paris Peace Conference of 1919 alongside the US, Britain, France, and Italy. The resulting Treaty of Versailles placed full blame for the war on Germany. At this conference, U.S. President Woodrow Wilson proposed the creation of the League of Nations, and Japan put forward a proposal to include the abolition of racial discrimination in its covenant. From Japan's side, this was partly driven by a desire to resolve anti-Japanese immigration issues in the United States and Canada. However, with 11 votes in favor and 5 against, the proposal failed because unanimous approval was required. In 1920, the League of Nations was established with Britain, France, Italy, and Japan as permanent members. The US, however, did not join due to domestic opposition. Japan was given a League mandate to administer former German territories in the South Seas, such as the Mariana and Marshall Islands. Thus, Japan gained much from the war without heavy losses. However, with the war's end, exports piled up in oversupply, prices crashed, and Japan fell into a recession. From 1921, an international conference was held in Washington with participants from the US, Britain, France, Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands, Portugal, China, and Japan. The agenda covered naval disarmament, China, the Pacific, and Far Eastern issues. The naval treaty set limits on battleship tonnage and ratios: US 5, Britain 5, Japan 3, France 1.67, Italy 1.67. On China, the powers agreed to preserve Chinese territorial integrity and maintain an open-door policy, reflecting the U.S.'s intentions, as America had been late in entering China. The U.S. also proposed a four-power treaty with Britain, France, and Japan, effectively ending the Anglo-Japanese alliance. Although the alliance had been a key security guarantee for Japan, it accepted the new treaty, and the alliance was not renewed. In this way, a new U.S.-led world order, the Washington System, took shape. In 1922, the Soviet Union was officially formed. Communist influence began to spread across Asia, and in Japan the Communist Party was secretly founded. On September 1st, 1923, a massive earthquake struck the Kantō region. Centered on Tokyo and Yokohama, it caused widespread building collapse and fires, destroying about 44% of Tokyo. Because it struck at lunchtime when many were cooking, and because a typhoon was approaching, the fires spread rapidly. The death toll exceeded 100,000, surpassing that of the Russo-Japanese War, and economic losses were 3 times the national budget. In the chaos afterward, some Koreans committed acts of violence, arson, and looting. Word spread that Koreans had poisoned wells, leading vigilante groups to kill more than 233 Koreans, 3 Chinese, and 59 Japanese mistaken for Koreans. Crown Prince Hirohito, later Emperor Shōwa, personally inspected the damage, an unusual act at the time. Later that year, on December 27th, there was an assassination attempt on the Crown Prince by a communist, heightening fear of communism in Japan. The blend of Japanese and Western aesthetics that emerged in the Taishō era, influenced by Meiji era Western culture, is known as Taisho Roman. Tokyo Station's red brick Marunouchi building, opened in 1913, is a prime example and is now an important cultural property. In food culture, dishes like curry rice, tonkatsu, and omelets became popular everyday meals, and today they remain favorites among foreign tourists visiting Japan. Products such as Kagome ketchup, Morinaga milk caramel, and Calpis, all introduced in the Taishō era, have been beloved bestsellers for over a century. Even amid post-earthquake reconstruction, daily life changed. Kimono remained common, but the earthquake prompted a shift toward Western clothing, which was easier to move in during emergencies. Fire-resistant reinforced concrete buildings increased, and Japan's first department stores with escalators and elevators appeared. At the same time, a gap was widening between white-collar workers in big companies and manual laborers or tenant farmers, becoming a social issue. Movements for universal suffrage and women's rights also grew stronger. In elections of the early 1920s, the political factions dominated by former samurai from the Satsuma and Choshu domains lost many seats. In 1925, the general election law was passed, granting all men aged 25 and over the right to vote, regardless of tax payments, quadrupling the number of eligible voters. Expecting socialist movements to grow, the government also enacted the Peace Preservation Law to suppress subversive and anti-state activities. This law later became a notorious tool for thought control and political repression. In 1926, Emperor Taisho passed away, bringing the Taishō Era to an end. Despite his frail health, he fathered 4 princes. Cheerful and curious by nature, he was known for speaking directly to ordinary citizens, even before becoming emperor, something that astonished many at the time. The image of an approachable, visible emperor, one that continues to this day, began with Emperor Taisho.